I'm here with, this is a wonderful opportunity to experience how indeed the creators create. I'm CindyPaulos here with my co-host, the beautiful Beth and Hilton from the Bee Company. And it's so wonderful to finally be able to connect with you. We went through our Zoom dance together, our prelude dance, and we're here together to talk about, as we do weekly, the creative process. And I know, Beth, you have a chance to help a lot of people who are creators manage that creative process, because we've found, I've talked to you about this, and I just talked to Stephen Melillo, our guest today, about this just in the last couple of days, is about creators are so busy creating sometimes that they can't handle that other part of trying to manage getting the word out about what they do and their message out. So it's so lovely to have someone who can handle that, like you, who understands it.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Cindy. Hi, Stephen.
Hi.
I'm thrilled to meet you and to learn more about your work today. I know Cindy knows you very well, but I'm just going to be a fly on the wall a little bit and watch and enjoy the conversation. But yeah, Cindy, it's my pleasure to handle some of the creative packaging around the artists, and the best way to do that is, I guess, poke your head up out of that creativity at some point in your process and say, okay, I just need to make a quick call out to someone who's going to help me launch this baby. And then let us get started on our work in helping you to package everything and be prepared for your release date. And then you can go back to finishing and enjoying, the process of finishing your project. So I usually ask, for people to give me a heads up, like 12 weeks out is great, as a
Oh,
guideline, maybe
I
even
wouldn't have guessed
16.
that, Beth. I would never would have guessed 12 weeks. That's
Yeah,
very
because
interesting.
a lot of time you want to have an 8-week pre-sale, so even 12 weeks just gives us a month to pull all the materials together and everything. And so you want to go 12 to 16 weeks just to make sure that everything can arrive at the same time for that pre-sale period, to give yourself the most lead-in excitement that you can and get all your social media together and all those things to be prepared.
Hmm.
Well, I have found Stephen Melillo to be a creative genius, and I mean, I've been in music and just ensconced in music since a very young age, and through my radio stations, I'm loving it. And then, the more I do, I get more confident to try to express myself more. But then I meet someone like Stephen, who is so many ways such a creative genius, and not only writing and composing. I think you have over, it's more than 1,200 pieces that you've done for Stormworks. Is it up to 14, Stephen?
Well, that piece that I just did sent you this morning or yesterday, that
Yeah,
was number 1250.
1250. My gosh. And that one was an example. You talked to the beautiful Catherine Keach, and she was talking to you about how she works at the Cambodian school. And she talked to you about the Cambodian puppets, the shadow puppets. And you created this magical piece that captured what a shadow puppet is. And that was done in the course of one day. And it was gorgeous. And we talked about my sister passing, and you talked about how your works have captured that in many ways. And you have. Um, but then you created this piece that's heavenly. So I really feel you're able to capture the spirit of a thought and compose it in such a inspiring way. And at the same time, you have this background with, you're an author, you've done books, just did a new
Mm-mm.
book recently. And
It froze
and
up again.
what? Yeah.
And it froze up for a second, so I missed a part
Oh,
of it.
okay. The
Sorry.
latest book you had on that is so beautiful. And on top of that, you went and you've worked with so many students. Fantastic teaching, and you still work with students as well. So I would love to start with talking to you about how you manage this creative process. I mean, because I know for some the creative process kind of guides them, but can you manage it, and how do you have all these amazing insights that come, and how do you manage working with them?
That's a pretty deep question. It's not very specific. But what's interesting is I think it was 2000. Okay, it was 2014 because I actually found a document for you. I was part of this. It's called a Bellwether Creative Longevity piece that this guy did. His name is Kerry O'Connor. And what's interesting about it is he talks to 27 different people. They're all CEOs of different companies. I happen to be a person who was in there, a composer, and I was part of his asking questions about creativity, and always and how do you get longevity in a field where it's dependent upon creativity. And one of the answers that I gave him, which is published in his book, I think is actually sort of getting to what you're getting at, is, and it sounds like a Zen answer, and I don't mean it to be a Zen answer. So if I can explain it. What I said to him was, the more creative you are, the more creative you are. Mm-hmm. Now that sounds very Zen-like, but it's true. Now I can make it Zen by saying that's what the Buddha said, right? The Buddha said, what you think of, you become, right? And what you practice, you become. So those things are logical, but I mean in a very pragmatic sense, if a person gears themselves up into the process of being creative, that's what they become. And so what happens is you reach I call it an asymptotic line, right? I mean, how many years ago it was? 1976, I was on a bridge in Boston, not knowing anything about music at all, saying a prayer. Please, God, let me understand music someday. And this was when I left University of Connecticut. And I was a physics major and a philosophy minor. And I went to Boston Conservatory. And there I was at Thanksgiving on a bridge saying a prayer. Please let me one day look back at this and go, how the heck did I not know anything about music? And from that place, it's been a constant ramping up of creativity. So once you throw yourself into that, you start thinking that way, you start becoming that way, you dream that way. Everything becomes a reflection of the quest, if you want to think of it that way, of creativity. So when I get a letter in an email from Catherine, who I wrote a piece for 21 years ago and didn't hear from her in 21 years, and when I get an email from her and she talks about the shadow puppets, right? And the little kids in Cambodia instantly that becomes music because that's become my nature. So now I have one of two choices, right? Ignore it or respond to it. And of course, it's really like 90 times out of 100 times, I will listen to something in my mind and say, no, this has to be told. This story has to be told. The weakness has always been, this is where Beth comes in. The weakness has always been that at the moment that I should be dedicating myself to, now the piece is written. Now it must go to the world. Well, that was 1,250 times that I've gone through that. And what happens is you come to the next question, which is how much time are you going to spend promoting that work? Or wait a minute, I just got another email and there's another inspiration, or I've seen another thing and it's another inspiration. So, if you're constantly in the state of inspiration, Beth, I've also written novels, and I know that it's hard to be objective about your own work, but I think that this last novel I wrote is so important in time, in the synchronization of what people are experiencing across the world right now. It's like really important, and it happened before this COVID thing happened. It happened before that, and yet in the book it talks about diseases and it's all connected. It talks about race and it talks about it happens during the Civil War, and it's this great story about what evil actually is.
Wow.
And I think
Ahab piece, the one you just wrote.
Well, Ahab, a Love Story, is the prequel story to Moby Dick, to Herman Melville's Moby Dick. I wrote that some years ago, Now I wrote the prequel to Moby Dick. I mean, excuse me, the sequel to Moby Dick. So you have Ahab, a love story, Moby Dick, then you have Death to Moby Dick, a love story. And it's a love story. And I deliberately put those words death and love into the title on purpose, because what is the evil? What is it that what is the thing that we're supposed to be fighting? And in the book, it's certainly not each other. And our hero points that out. Our hero says, don't you see, we're fighting each other, but it's not us, it's it. We have to go after it. And of course, in the Moby Dick metaphor, it's the white whale.
Right.
So I think to myself, this is such a great story. And anybody who's read it goes, this is such a great story. And then I sit here and go, okay, but I got to write a piece. And even if I didn't know, or even if I had skill in marketing, it would be so limited that it would be ridiculous. So that's why you need someone like Beth to come in and say, Steve, I shall rescue you.
Well, it's unfair that we're living in a time when artists are expected to do all this DIY stuff, and I think additionally, there's all this programming out there about let us teach you how to do it yourself, and that's not really what you're meant to be doing either. And so I don't go down that route. Let someone do it for you, because your strength is as a storyteller. Absolutely. So I did get a chance to look at your Amazon page and look at some of the books, and then your blog as well. So even in those posts, you're a wonderful storyteller. I can see that, and I look forward to reading more of those. And for some reason, when you were just talking about Death to Moby Dick, your book, I also had a picture of that movie, The Never-Ending Story. Remember the darkness? That would have been the version of the whale that you were just talking about. So, I love that kind of metaphorical storytelling, and that probably goes back to your origins in philosophy and physics, and it kind of all comes together.
Absolutely. And if you isolate just the Ahab story, that is connected throughout all the Stormworks, because 25 years ago, I wrote a piece called Ahab, which is a piece for actor and wind ensemble. And this summer I did it for actor and symphony orchestra. And that piece is literally the soliloquies of all Ahab's lines from Moby Dick set to music. And so one line from that triggered me writing the book, Ahab, a Love Story, which is the prequel. The line was, 40 years ago, I was a boy. I mean, you got to really think about that. Here's this guy that everybody always wants to pin as a bad guy, and he's on the deck of the ship, and he's saying, I'm bearing my soul to Starbuck here in a rare moment, and I'm saying, 40 years ago, I was a boy harpooner. And I said, who was Ahab when he was a boy? Who were his parents, and what turned him into this person? And so I wrote this story. Ahab, a Love Story. It's how Ahab becomes Ahab. Then we see Moby Dick, which is right in the timeline. Starts at the American Revolution. It goes to the timeline of Moby Dick. It takes you right to the deck of the Pequod. And then after that, the sinking of the Pequod, it goes Death to Moby Dick, a love story, which is, I don't want to give anything away, but it's the sequel to Moby Dick.
And that's timed with the Civil War, right?
Yeah.
And by the time you're done with these novels, you've gone from the American Revolution to, get ready for this, the beginning of World War I. It's all historically accurate. In fact, it's obsessively accurate to the point where even geological things, astrological things, astronomical events, all of these things are absolutely true to history, including ship names, ship manifests, people who were on board the ships. All of it is true. So by the time you're done with it, you're totally convinced that these people lived. I mean, I'm at the point where I go, Ahab is not a fiction. There was an Ahab. I mean, I've made my own mind believe that this is true from these three stories.
Well, and Stephen, in your work, you've done so many scores and beautiful soundtracks. documentaries as well. How many do you figure you've done? Because I want to talk a little bit about the one you worked with Rupam Sarma for One Little Finger, but
Uh-huh.
those are stories as well. Obviously, being a storyteller, you understand how to translate the story to music. So you've been doing these soundtracks as well as doing your individual pieces. So how many do you figure you have in soundtracks and scores?
Well, I've done 15 independent feature film scores, which range from maybe 70 minutes of music to 88 minutes of music. I think one of them was actually 92 minutes of music. I actually, for one film, I actually wrote more music than the length of the film, only to have backstory, so that when the director producer created the album, that there would be all of this sort of back thing, like maybe something was quoted in the film, but I wanted the full version of it on the album. So yeah, I would say about 15. There's 15 feature film scores, and then there's a lot of like sort of television things that are mostly library stuff. Like I haven't, well, I have, but I've written things for television, but a lot of stuff is just library stuff, and people will paste it in and so on.
Hmm.
I'm going to share the
Hmm.
screen here now so that we can see a little bit about what you did. And I have the page up here for One Little Finger. So we're
Hmm.
going to go to that so we can see. Um, right here now is One Little Finger, of course, and this was what you did for One Little Finger. Composer, Stormworks, Stephen Melillo, and of course, Dr. Rupam Sarma, a wonderful man who's a good friend of mine and yours, and how we actually met, actually on a Zoom conference um, last year, late last year's. But as you know,
Hmm.
One Little Finger is not just a film, it's a movement to break the barriers of stigma. And you know, Rupam, and he loves doing major productions with his group that he worked with in India. So he had this
Hmm.
vision, and when he contacted you for this, we're looking at this here. There's 19 pieces that you created from this, which are beautiful, and some were done as songs as well. With Jan Close, is it Jan or John? Jan Close, I did a
Jan, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
lovely
Hmm.
piece. Tell us a little bit about how you evolve when there's obviously you're working with Rupam's a wonderful musician as well.
Hmm.
Explain how that process worked with One Little Finger.
He just basically asked me if I would like to be involved with the project. I said yes, of course. And then he just started sharing, the film clips with me, and then we talked about them. At one point, he actually came here and spent, like, I think 3 days with us. And we went to a nice Indian restaurant, and he taught us all about Indian food. That was great.
Hmm.
And he taught my kids about Indian food. Uh, but yeah, I mean, basically, it's just talking about, what is it that you want to communicate? Because, on a surface level, music's only talking about the surface, right? I mean, like an action scene that has action in it is, that's logical, but there are other levels. Like, what is that person feeling during that action? And so that's where the director is very, very important, because director is saying, look, what I really want people to get out of this is this feeling, right? Like there's the guy Den, one of the characters, he was being picked on, and so what do we want to feel here? Well, we want two things at once. We want the action to be amplified, but we also want what he's thinking and feeling to be amplified. Um, so to me, that's what music is. Music is you know turning thoughts and feelings into a sound that's recognizable to somebody else. Maybe not exactly the same way, but they listen to that and they go, oh, that's love. Oh, that's hurt. Oh, that's pain. So there's these intangible things that happen in music, not specific, but we're we're so much alike in so many ways. And of course, that happens regardless of the language, and it happens regardless of the culture and the country, right? Because, you know, all the Stormworks CDs, I mean, those are all around the world with many diverse cultures. And in fact, you know, so I wind up conducting people who have no English, but it doesn't matter because I'm singing. And, you know, the people that recorded Ahab, for instance, those guys were Germans, right? But they were ex-East Germans. So their second language was Russian, not English. And so here we were exactly 10 years to the day after the wall had fallen. And I'm doing Ahab with them. And they don't understand, because I can't communicate to them, that there's an actor that's going to be doing all these lines over. So they're just trusting me. And I'm just, oh, I didn't. Okay. And, you know, just that way, everybody understands the music. It's not a cliche. Music is a language that everyone gets.
Yeah. Universal language, and also are the feelings which you just brought up in these movies and these scores and these soundtracks. You have a storyline, and every story and movie, I think, is based on the hero's journey to a degree. It is with one little finger, because you see how then it overcomes some of the stigmas and the problems, and then becomes able to be his own self. And it happened in this case with him in life as well as in the movie, which is wonderful.
That's right.
Rupam was smart enough and dedicated and just so committed that he used his children in this film were children that actually had disabilities. And he, of course, doesn't like the word disabilities. It's the ability and disabilities. So in this case, you have Indian influences and sounds. There's actually different scale. You have the feelings, which are universal, and you have the storyline with these innocent, beautiful children who've gone through so much pain. So you have a lot you're embodying in this score and the soundtrack.
Yes, but you know, it's easy because people have, we all have things so much in common. So there was a single shot, and I was trying to find it for you, and I sent it to you guys say Rupam, I call him Rupp. I sent it to Rupp, and I said, Rupp, this shot is this one moment. This is the film, man. And let me see. Can you give me a second? And I could try to find this photograph, because it's like one of those things, like a thousand words are being spoken in the. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Mention a little bit about One Little Finger while we did this, because there is the soundtrack and the score, and I was able to bring that beautiful, beautiful movie here to Maui. So here we had children that were handicapped children being able to see it. We had a pre-concert with an amazing guitarist. You might know James Kimo West, who plays guitar.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And he came and played guitar with George Kawamoku, who George won 5 Grammys, and he lives here on Maui, and with a wonderful saxophone player, Rock Hendricks, who was originally from the Bay Area, played with some of the greats, and now is like a #1 smooth artist saxophone player. He's done all kinds of top of the charts pieces with Paul Hardcastle in England. So they all joined forces. These people from all these different influences did a pre-concert, and then there was this amazing film we all saw. So it brought again that culture together, as we all did and experienced in this film. Again, with the great, wonderful Rupam knowing and seeing what these children are going through in India, which some of us, because we can't even imagine the third world energies and what they have to deal with in some of these places in India. So did you find the picture? Did you find it while I was talking? No.
I didn't find it real fast enough, but I could just describe it to you.
Insert it later.
I'll describe it to you, or I can send it to you later. He gets out of his wheelchair, and there's a big staircase, and he's pulling himself up that staircase. I said, "Oh, this is." So then I said to Rupp, Rupp, this needs a certain kind of music. And as I'm talking to him, he has in back of him a picture of Gandhi, and there was a quote by Gandhi. You know, first they, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember it offhand. You know, first they insult you, then they do this to you, then they beat you, and then you win.
Mm-hmm.
And I made that the first part of this song called "Let Me Be Brave," and I bounced it off of Rupp, and I said, "Listen, Rupp, this is what your whole film is about. Let me be brave. Let me be brave. Let me fall. Let me stumble. Let me try to climb up those stairs. This is what this is about." And this is all captured in this guy Dan as he tries to like pull himself up this chair. Well, so that convinced Rupp to go with that song, "Let Me Be Brave." And then he found Jan Close, who did a fantastic, incredible, vocal job on delivering that song.
Absolutely. And those words of Gandhi are included in the song. First,
They're the introduction to the song.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's again
Hmm.
how the muse works. I feel when I'm ever creating a piece or work that it's like a child that wants to be heard. And obviously, the muse for you has lots of different voices, whether it's a book or a soundtrack. And we're now working on a piece together with Catherine to do a lovely piece in honor of my sister who passed because words came through me. But do you find that these different children waiting to be born have different voices to you? That do you have different vibrational? Music is frequencies and energy. Do you attune to different frequencies? Are you sensitive to what happens with different pieces?
you know, Everybody has a different way of expressing things. So the way that you expressed it was one of the first times I've ever heard it expressed as a child that wants to be born. So I personally would never have thought of those words, although that makes total sense, right? Now, I don't know if I think you might be raising me up higher than I should be. I don't know about different frequencies and uh, that sort of thing. But I do know that God is speaking to us. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know that. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that music comes from God. There is none. And you do something 1,250 times and you get it really locked in. You start to understand it. I know that this is not coming from me. I'm just the hands at that moment, the fingers, the pen. But I do believe that it comes from God. So whereas I might not have a vision or experience of a frequency, I also have a knowledge that's deep within that whatever I'm doing, it's for something which is more important than what I think, and it's definitely not for me. And so again, it's like sort of goes back to Beth because I think another problem that a creative person has is that when they try to market something, they're thinking that they're doing something for themselves. And that runs really against me too, because, I'm sort of spoiled by, I want it to be pure all the time. I want it to be pure, like an altar boy level pure, like the wine and the water going across the priest's fingers, sort of pure.
Yeah. Well, I think what is great is basically you're saying you're the conduit, honestly, for this God inspired work. And I think what you have achieved is being open and actualized as an artist, because you were saying earlier that you have to recognize you have the choice, you've been called upon. You have the choice to receive that message or ignore it, depending on any number of factors that could be happening in your life right then. And that is just a huge win for any artist to get to that point, to realize that they're being given the message and then realize they have the choice. And am I going to act on it, or am I going to let it go or pass on this one? Is huge, because there's lots of different words for all
Yeah.
of that. You can be a procrastinator, or you can, give into the resistance against creating,
Mm.
you can be a victim and say, oh, another idea. I don't have time. I don't have energy, which is all just the stories, that come to us to try to get us to not take that creative path, I think. So
Hmm.
I've been reading a book called The War of Art. We've all heard of the art of
Oh,
war. This is the
yes, yes,
opposite. And it's
yeah.
exactly about resistance, and it's really the whole first half of the book is recognizing and learning to recognize resistance to your creative gifts. So
Hmm.
it's been perfect timing with this show with Cindy and her wonderful idea about making this about creators, and so we hope it inspires people. And yeah, just I mean, if you've actualized and you have that gift, then create
Yes.
and let someone else help you with the marketing, and that's kind of my fun and my gift. So I
Good
enjoy that
gift.
part of
I
it.
wrote this just the other
Good
day.
gift.
I believe I had this with you in mind, Stephen. It's called The Muse. The Muse cannot fit in a box, for it is free and locked to roam, a spirit so undefined. It has no home, and is always greeted by the welcoming soul. The Muse speaks
Hmm.
in many languages, translated by the breath we breathe inside the mind and silent mysteries, and smiles when we create what it sees. The Muse is a nectar sipped by starving artists that are so in need, a welcome guest we've all met, a hungry ghost that we once fed. Muse gets no royalties, it has no clear set fee. Given is always free, and yet it holds imagination's key. What is amusing, it seems to me, is that the universality that artists feel, and how grateful we all should be for this mystic kiss the muse does bring. So I
Hmm.
want to thank you for, capturing the spirit of heaven, the spirit of that music of the spheres, that spirit of the music that God sings and brings to you, because it's been a gift to me, and it's opened up the possibilities that yes, there are people out there that can do that, capture that language of God and bring it to music, and to me it's a wonderful gift, and I'm just really grateful to you for opening that door of possibilities. Really looking forward. And I want to, just before we go, take a moment to go to your website. Tell people your website so they can go to your website if they wish. What's your website, Stephen Melillo?
It could be. It's either StephenMelillo.com, like you see there,
Yes.
or stormworld.com.
No, this
It's
is
either
just,
one of those.
I was listening to this
And
one this
now you
morning.
see
Oh
this.
my gosh, I
You see
love
that
it.
one right there. You see that one there, Cindy and
Yes.
Ann. A walk on the water. You see that one? It's right under Shmuel Kahana. It's you see it it's on the left side there. It's like a sun
Yeah, with the
bow, and
sun.
it's
Yes,
a
there.
walk on
That's
the water.
beautiful.
There's a piece on there called A Walk on the Water, which is about the muse, and
Oh,
you're gonna really like it. I have a soprano not only off stage but up high, and she's humming this. Oh, I can't sing, but she's so doing this, and she represents the muse. I think you'll like that because
oh,
that's
and
called
I was
Walk
listening
on
to
the
this.
Water.
I listened to this one way. I listened to that 10
Oh,
times this morning. 10 times. I
did you
was
listen
so,
to the? Did you listen to the piece about Roberto Clemente? Please
um,
tell me that you did.
I don't know.
The piece about Roberto.
I was obsessed with that song. I just kept listening and listening because it spoke to me so deeply.
Oh,
And I wrote a poem about that one as well. So
oh my
I will
gosh.
listen to that when we close out here. But I just want to thank you. I know it was you're very busy with all of your many projects. So I'm very grateful we were able to get together today. And I hope people can check out your amazing works. I find them so inspirational. So, Stephen Melillo, that's Melillo, StephenMelillo.com.
Mhm.
Thank you,
Thanks
Stephen.
very much.
Thank you so
No,
much
thank
for
you.
being with us. Thank you. Really appreciate meeting
Okay.
you, and I look forward to checking everything out.
And it's so good to
And
see
Beth,
you, Beth.
I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. I have an idea.
Okay. My pleasure.
Okay.
Much
Okay.
gratitude, you, Beth. I'm so glad we can explore the creative spirit together because look at the energy it brings. I don't know about you, but I feel inspired um,
Absolutely. Thank you, Cindy.
after this half hour. So that's what it's all about. So God bless and lots of aloha to you. Until we talk again, share that blessing that comes with that inspired muse and aloha.
Aloha.